I just want to thank everybody for calling in. And I really have to thank, the Bankless Africa, Ernest, and everybody else who has given us a lot of help in terms of bringing this program to life. So carbon collectible NFTs. And so we call this the world's first non-fungible digital carbon offset. So the question that you're all asking is, well, what does that mean? So that's what we're here today to answer. And our purpose is slightly different to the purpose of traditional carbon offsets. Our goal is equity and inclusion in climate finance. And of course, to help in the fight against global warming, a lot of scientists believe that greenhouse gases is the main cause for global warming. And so we're trying to come up with a new mechanism to address this issue while providing equity and inclusion for mature forests, specifically in some of the lower income areas around the world. And the way we've decided to address this problem is through NFTs. And we see NFTs as a new funding mechanism, specifically for countries that have an undervalued asset like gold. Believe it or not, gold is undervalued in Ghana. And in this particular case, carbon sequestration. And there's a number of things that are different about our approach. Even for the NFT, when you go to our site and mint, and our minting is probably going to start in the January timeframe, it's not just going to be art. When you click that mint button, there's going to be an avatar. And that avatar you can customize. And so it's going to be a humanoid with an animal's head. And you can say, I want my humanoid to have an elephant's head or a lion's head. And you can change the color. You can select the clothing, change the color of the clothing. So you can actually customize your impact avatar. And then after you have actually paid for that NFT, you can go to another website, which is basically a kind of a simplified gaming website. And then once you connect your wallet, that website will pull down the attributes that you selected for your avatar. And now you'll be able to see your avatar actually walking through a forest. And eventually we'll try to get that metaverse forest to look more like the real forest. But at this point, it's just going to be a pixelated forest. And as you're walking through the forest, you're going to meet other people who have bought NFTs as well. And you'll actually be able to speak to those other people. So initially, it's just going to be a simplified gaming concept. And the point of this game is to transport crypto funding to real-world, low-income forestry communities who, in return, will actually help you offset your in-real-life personal carbon footprint for 10 years into the future. And so these carbon offsets are reserving carbon sequestration in the future, rather than looking back historically and saying, we've got proven carbon sequestration from a year ago. So why are we doing this and what problem are we trying to solve? So first of all, hopefully everybody understands that, humans breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. We have all these factories from the Industrial Revolution that are pumping greenhouse gases into the air. When you drive a gas guzzling car or take a flight, this is all contributing to greenhouse gases. So everybody has a personal carbon footprint, yet trees are really good at using these sunlight energy from the sun and water to extract carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. That carbon is then extracted, oxygen is pumped back into the atmosphere, and this carbon is captured as wood in trees and then absorbed into the ground as well. So trees are really good at reversing that process, consuming carbon dioxide and emitting oxygen. Then just a little bit of a primer on carbon offsets. And so certainly in the US, a lot of people use the term carbon credit and carbon offset interchangeably. In the US, a carbon credit is really the right to emit carbon into the atmosphere. Carbon offsets are the rights or the capability to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere or avoid the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And what I've realized, I think in Europe, they actually use carbon credits in the way we use carbon offsets. But the point here is that in California, and this happens a lot in Europe as well, there's a state policy that basically says companies like the electricity company is only allowed to emit a certain amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And so this is called a cap and trade program. If the electricity company exceeds their cap, then the state of California is going to fine them. Alternatively, that electricity company can buy carbon offsets from another organization, like a forest or some other organization that is extracting carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, so that that electricity company is carbon neutral at the end of the year. That's why for these compliance programs, they want to buy historical carbon offsets, because the state government or the national governments in Europe say you have to be carbon neutral by the end of the year or by the end of a term. And so that's a really important point. But here we're talking about two different types of carbon offsets. There's compliance carbon offsets, and the electricity company, for example, they can only buy those compliance carbon offsets from a regulated exchange. So they could not buy our carbon offsets and then comply with the cap and trade program in the state of California. At the same time, there's voluntary carbon offsets where companies like Toyota, Amazon, and some of these other companies just say, look, we just want to be good corporate citizens. And because of that, we're just volunteering to offset our carbon footprint. And so we are deciding to buy carbon offsets without being mandated by a government. And anybody can buy and sell voluntary carbon offsets. And initially, this led to a lot of fraud. And so even people who are buying voluntary carbon offsets, they will say, in order to make sure this is all valid, we will only buy voluntary carbon offsets that have been certified by one of these independent certification companies. And there's about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these organizations that are pretty well known. The problem with that is the certification costs $150,000, $700,000 or more. For a low-income forestry community, this is just completely unaffordable, and it becomes exclusive. So for us, if we look at traditional carbon offsets, their goal is to incentivize new carbon sequestration, which is a great goal in Europe and in the US. Because people who own, mature forests in the US are these large organizations who do not need to be incentivized financially to retain their trees. But in lower income communities, where maybe you've got a farmer who's got a small holding, and that small holding has trees on it, and they've got no other way to monetize their asset, then that becomes a problem. Traditional carbon offsets become a problem rather than the solution. And so our goal is completely different to traditional carbon offsets. Our goal is equity and inclusion, so that those mature forests are included. And then secondly, the certification cost becomes zero. Anybody can afford $0. And so this is what our goal was. And then in order to achieve this goal, the question is, well, how can you do that? And so our response is we need a whole new class of digital carbon offsets. And so we use satellite imagery, machine learning, and artificial intelligence to look at the tree cover, and based on that tree cover, estimate the amount of carbon that is being emitted by the forest, the amount of carbon that is being sequestered by the forest, and therefore the net carbon sequestration. And to be honest with you, we're not the ones doing this. There's a third-party organization called Global Forest Watch. They monitor all of the forests all around the world, and they make their data available free of charge. And so we are actually using their data to calculate the carbon sequestration of our forests. And the second point for these organizations, these third-party organizations, the certification organizations, is why are we paying them to track carbon offsets when blockchains can do this free of charge? And so what we do is we tie carbon sequestration, in fact, 1 hectare of land, to a specific NFT. And that NFT is tracked on a blockchain. And so that completely eliminates double counting. And so it means that the people who own this land, they cannot sell the carbon sequestration rights to 5 different people. So we use the blockchain. And again, the cost of the blockchain in our particular case is negligible. And then thirdly, what we do is we have a broker dealer who verifies the right of sale. And so for this pilot project, we're actually working with a forestry community in Abitime in the Volta region of Ghana. And in October, a FINRA SEC registered broker dealer in the US paid their own way to travel to Ghana to verify that the community actually owns this forest actually exists. And then we received a letter from the Paramount Chief, who has communal guidance for all of these individual forest owners in the community. And so the Paramount Chief actually sent us a letter to participate in the program, and actually sent a letter to the Forestry Commission saying that the community has decided to participate in our program. And that letter is actually on our website. Now, the Forestry Commission actually responded by saying, you know, they really support this program and are actually given permission for the community to participate in our program. And that letter from the Forestry Commission is also on our website. And so the broker dealer verified that these letters are real, verified the forest exists, verified that the Paramount Chief actually wrote that letter, and verified that the Forestry Commission actually wrote that letter in response. So we believe we've got a number of advantages. And so first of all, on the left-hand side here, what you can see is the boundaries of our forest that has been input into the Global Forest Watch website. And once you input that boundary of the forest, the Global Forest Watch website actually calculates the carbon sequestration. And if you go to their website, they can explain the algorithms that they use in order to come up with that estimate. And then what we have done, we've actually got a PhD from Stanford University, who's a data scientist, and he worked with an analyst from Global Forest Watch to subdivide our forest into individual hectares. And then for each of these hectares, we've got the longitude, the latitude, we actually have the carbon emission and the carbon sequestration and the net carbon sequestration, which we have rounded up to be the equivalent number of carbon offsets. And so hectare number 1 in this example, this is the longitude and latitude, it actually has the equivalent of 6 tons of carbon dioxide in terms of net carbon sequestration, which is the equivalent of 6 voluntary carbon offsets. Hectare number 5 actually has about 10. And then what we've done is we've identified a number of sites of interest in the forest, and we've actually got the geolocation of those sites of interest. And we're actually indicating that for each hectare, which sites of interest are within half a kilometer of these different sites of interest. And so what does this all mean? What it means is that we've got better utility than traditional carbon offsets. With a traditional carbon offset, they're fungible. These carbon offsets are fungible, and each carbon offset is related to a project. Now, you don't know which trees or which part of that project it relates to, but all of these carbon offsets are a big bundle associated with the whole project. What we're doing is we're conveying all the digital rights to 1 hectare of land, which includes carbon sequestration, but includes much more as well. And then we believe we've got superior provenance because we're allowing you to drill down to a specific hectare of forestry. And you have basically the digital and virtual rights exclusively to that 1 hectare of forestry. So we're giving you much better provenance. And then in terms of scarcity, a traditional carbon offset doesn't give you any scarcity. And what we're indicating here is that if your hectare of land has a waterfall or is close to a waterfall, maybe that's a little more valuable than a hectare of land that is not close to a waterfall. And so there's this additional scarcity that we believe our carbon offsets bring to the table. And so again, with each NFT, we're conveying digital and virtual rights to 1 hectare of forestry, but not the physical rights. The physical rights to the trees and the land remain with the landowner. Our pricing is about $500, so that's $10 per offset, 5 offsets on average per NFT, and a 10-year future term. And about 65% of the price paid for an NFT will end up going to the community. And so when you buy a traditional carbon offset, you need to ask what percentage of that price you pay actually goes to the farmer or the landowner or the community. And I can tell you it's much less than 65%. In fact, I've seen a study that basically says the price of some carbon offsets are more than 100% of the price of the carbon offset or the cost of the project. Once you include all of the transactional costs, the cost of the project is more than 100% of the cost of the actual carbon offset. So, that's, what does that actually mean? And what that actually means is that if you're paying for one of those carbon offsets, your money is just going to the intermediaries and the government is still basically subsidizing the forest. And so the cost of the project should be less than, 30%, and eventually in the future, less than 20% of the price that you're paying for that carbon offset. So in terms of that 65% going back into the community, some of that revenue will be spent on forest management activities to help optimize the health of the forest. Some of it will be spent on forest security to prevent illegal logging and bushfires. But guess what? If you put up fences or whatever you do, people are just going to find a way around that. So you really need to address the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is illegal logging and bushfires are the best way for those people to put food on the table for their families. So to solve that problem, you need to give them an alternative livelihood. So the majority of this money, 50%, actually goes to a social innovation studio. And the purpose of that social innovation studio is to get a list of issues, challenges from the local community, and then share that list of challenges with experts around the world, specifically experts who in technologies like blockchain innovations, business models, etc., who can work with those local people to get a really good understanding of these problems, prioritize those problems, and then try to reimagine solutions to those problems. And some of these are age-old problems, reimagine solutions using these blockchain type innovations, just like we have with NFTs and in the future DeFi and DAOs to solve those problems in a completely different way. And then what we're looking to do with this social innovation studio is to fund companies, convert some of these local people into entrepreneurs, and then help them with not just funding, but management expertise, technical expertise, and everything they need to grow those companies to product market fit and beyond. And then hopefully those companies, now we're creating entrepreneurs, they're creating jobs and they're creating economic growth. And then those livelihoods become a better alternative for the local community than illegal logging and bushfires. And so now you've actually solved the root cause of the problem. So in terms of problem solution fit, problem statement is traditional carbon offsets are exclusive and unaffordable. And to a certain extent, traditional carbon offsets are the problem, not the solution. Our solution is this new class of digital carbon offsets that we believe will actually disrupt the traditional carbon offset industry. And in terms of product market fit, so we're selling a mixed reality NFT that conveys the digital and virtual rights to an exclusive hectare of forestry, which includes in real life carbon sequestration. Our target market initially is the socially conscious crypto community. And again, looking at our advantages, we're inclusive. We include mature forests in low-income communities, equitable in that our cost of certification is $0. We're eliminating the expensive intermediaries. Non-fungible, so each of these carbon offsets or NFTs, block of carbon offsets, you relate to a unique hectare of forestry, which is non-fungible. And then the rights to our carbon sequestration is futuristic, not historical. And, you know, one example that I would give, in California, we've got a horrible problem with, you know, people being homeless. And this is a huge problem. And I don't want to relate carbon sequestration to homelessness, but if I was given the opportunity to invest in one of those programs and somebody said to me, you know, you can pay for somebody who's homeless that lived in a home for the previous 10 years, but now they're going to be homeless going forward, or you can spend some money to give that person a home for the next 10 years. I'm going to give some, I mean, they're both issues that need to be addressed, but if you've got $1, maybe you can only spend that $1 in one place. When you're deciding you're going to do something with that dollar, you're deciding you're not going to do other things with that dollar. In that particular case, I would rather pay for that person to have a home for the next 10 years in the future. And so again, the difference, hopefully, you know, while these things aren't equivalent, hopefully it can help people to see the difference. We're allowed, you know, carbon sequestration is a proxy for trees. What we're saying is, let's give people the funding they need to keep those trees healthy so that those trees will continue to sequester carbon 10 years into the future. And so again, in terms of utility, we're providing way more than just carbon sequestration. In terms of provenance, we're really using geolocation to help the owners of these NFTs to zoom in on the particular hectare of land that they have exclusive rights to. And then we're providing rarity by linking that to specific sites of interest. And so, in fact, before I get on to questions, I just want to make one more point here. If I can just skip to the next page. If you look at Web 1.0, Web 1.0 was kind of about email and one-way centralized information. So there were like these bulletin boards on America Online, and you could log in. In fact, with America Online, you had to log in, but when Yahoo came along and said, look, you don't even have to log in, you can see our information. But it was kind of one-way information and email. Web 2.0 came along. That's where we are today, where we have point-to-point information exchanges. Anybody can be an information source. Everybody can consume information. The problem is that social media owns the value. And so they're selling your information, they're selling my information, and they're keeping all that value. And so the value is centralized. And the way this manifests itself is that if you look at Ghana and the Ivory Coast, they control 70% of the production of cocoa. Yet if you buy a cup of coffee, less than 1% of the price of that cup of coffee goes to the farmer. All of it goes to these intermediaries. And yes, they're providing branding and all this value, but to me, the promise of Web 3.0 is a peer-to-peer decentralized value exchange, where somebody who owns an asset, and in the future, we will convert our system into an exchange where somebody who owns a hectare of land would be able to make that hectare of land available on our exchange. And then somebody who wants to pay for the carbon sequestration rights or the gaming rights or the metaverse rights can buy those rights directly from the asset holder. And so today the asset holder may get 60, 65%. In the future, they could get 85% or more. And so to me, that is the promise of Web 3.0, and that's the direction that we're heading in. And this is just some of the, so we actually went to Ghana to visit the forest back in October. And these are some of the images that we captured. So instead of taking questions, what I'm going to do is exit from here. One of the challenges that we actually have is that in Ghana, the phone service isn't quite the same as it is in the US. And so it becomes very difficult for our local resources to get good phone access. So Mr. Asua, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Seth Rashid Asu, Director for Whole West District Agri Department.
Okay, and is that the Department of Agriculture?
Yes, Department of Agriculture, yes.
Okay, and then what ministry in the government of Ghana does that roll up to?
Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
Okay, okay, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time to join us today.
You're welcome.
Okay, so can you just explain your role in the Abitime community?
I directly work with the farmers in the Avatime district, community in the whole West district. And basically, everything connected to agriculture that farmers or the citizens are involved in, I work directly with them to achieve results. And my department is a decentralized department under the local government that oversees agricultural activities in the district. And so we are linked directly. Our mother ministry is the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about the Abitime community itself?
Avatime community is a mountainous, mainly mountainous. Okay, so Avatime community is mainly mountainous with a lot of forests on the mountains, mainly on the mountains. And most of the farmers there cultivate rice, a special type of rice called brown rice within their farming operations. So basically, Avatime represents a very important community so far as the whole West district is concerned. And their leader, I would say the Paramount Chief, mainly has been very instrumental when it comes to agricultural development of the area. And we work hand in hand to see to the welfare of the people.
Okay, and the Paramount Chief actually is on the call today, and he's the one that actually applied to us to actually become part of our program, and also sent a letter to the local, to the Forestry Commission as well, to participate. Okay, so thank you for that. Can you tell us a little bit about the Abitime Forest itself?
Well, I can say that the forest has quite different species of trees. And most of these trees, efforts have been made to protect the forest. A lot of efforts have been put in to protect the forest from many bushfires and illegal logging. And so over the period, it's been one community that the district has been proud of so far as vegetation, maintenance of vegetation is concerned.
Okay, yeah, we can still hear you. And then what are some of the challenges that are currently being faced by the forest and the community?
Well, in terms of the forest maintenance, sustenance of the forest, occasionally, annually, almost throughout the whole district, there are records of bushfires, and quite difficult to know who causes it. But there has been consistent effort made over the years by forming local watchdog committees who help to sensitize the citizenry, and then also put in measures at least to minimize the incidence of bushfires. So bushfires have been a major threat to the community in terms of the forest management. And also the illegal mining or logging of the trees has also been a threat. And the forestry department has also put in a lot of measures to curtail the incidents. So basically, these have been the two major challenges when it comes to the sustenance of the forest.
So just for clarification, those bushfires, are they human initiated?
Some are. We'll say some not intentionally. When our assessment teams go around, is being recorded that some are not intentional, but of course, it's directly linked to human activities. Sometimes farmers go to the farm to do their cooking, and out of maybe neglect or forgetfulness, they leave the fires unattended to, and that also leads to the incidence of bushfires and other related human activities. So that is why a lot of sensitization goes on year by year to, educate the farmers to be conscious of their activities when they go into the forest, so that it will not result into the bushfires incidents.
Okay, and so one different question here is that, in the US and in Europe, some of these very large forests are owned by large corporations. And these large corporations have all these, they subcontract forest management to these other large organizations, and they're well funded and they're able to upkeep the forest. Is the Abitime Forest owned by a large organization?
No. The lands, I know the lands in Avatime mainly belongs to individuals. It's individual holdings. And so there's no record of any large corporation owning the management of the forest. It's only the Paramount Chief and his team who try to help with some activities that will help the owners maintain their lands and the forest. So basically, there is no large corporation that is involved in the forest management in Avatime.
Okay, and so back to educational aspects. So what education do you think is necessary to help the community improve the care of the forest?
Well, it's already ongoing. Like for the advert effects of fires is well known to the citizen already, but sometimes the effort and the steps to curtail it, it seems to be a bit costly to them. And so education in terms of the very need for everyone to be involved in the management of the forest, the basic education about forest maintenance and the do's and don'ts in the forest has all been ongoing. But it's important that this is repeated over and over for the people to grasp the very essence of the education.
Okay, and then what about education for improved farming practices?
Our technical officers, agricultural technical officers, working with the farmers, encourage them to engage in activities that are environment, that are friendly to the environment. For instance, when farmers weed their farms, they slash their farms. We don't encourage burning, but rather they leave the weeds on the land to decay and also provide a humus or manure to the soil rather than burning. And so we encourage a slash but no burn farming. Though tedious to do, honestly, it's quite tedious to do because some of the trashes are so huge that it's difficult to just leave it like that on a field without burning and then go into planting. So basically, we encourage them to slash early enough, give enough time between the planting and then the slashing, so that the debris can decay and provide humus for and serve as a mulch for the crops before they plant. So these are some of the basic knowledge that we pass on to the farmers.
Okay, and then how can these new or these educational practices be delivered to the community in an improved way? What could help you get this information out to the community more efficiently?
We will want to work more closely with FBOs, farmer-based organizations, meaning that the farmers are supposed to be put in groups and managing groups, educating groups, farmers in groups provides a better learning environment and usage of the technologies than meeting the farmers one-on-one. So we advise that any intervention should be tailored towards meeting the farmers in groups so that they serve as each other's tutors along the line. So when one farmer is not doing one thing well because they are in groups and the knowledge was passed on to the farmers in groups, the others in the group will be able to remind their colleagues of what is needed to be done at any point in time. So we want to encourage group formation, FBO formation, and meeting these farmers as a group rather than using the individual approach.
Okay, and are you aware of the use of any cryptocurrency type technologies, the blockchain, DAOs, stable coins, DeFi? Are you aware of the use of any of these technologies in the local community to help with farming practices or to help with forest management or anything else?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and then if a small amount of funding was made available for the local community, and I know this is a difficult question because you're probably working on 100 different projects, but if the small amount of funding was made available to help with either community education or community livelihoods, how do you think that money should be spent?
Well, I believe providing skill training for the local community citizenry will go a long way to help, because some of the activities that we want to encourage the farmers to engage in that will help them be able to contribute positively to the forest management will require some skills. For instance, introducing farmers to beekeeping, introducing farmers to mushroom production are all forestry related activities. And once the farmers have these alternative livelihood activities ongoing, and they are more and more involved in the forest and working within the forest environment, invariably speaking, they are compelled to help provide security and safety of the forest, because they will be made to understand that, for instance, if you are going into snail rearing and snails thrives well in the forest, if the forest is destroyed or disturbed, then you will not be able to get the environment that is needed for the snail rearing. And once the farmer is supported, empowered to produce or to rear these snails, and that becomes an income source of the farmer.
Yeah, and of course that is the directive
Then
of
the
us.
farmer will automatically be more than willing to support the
Hey, Mr. Asura, your line is cutting in and out. But I believe you were saying that mushroom production, snail rearing, beekeeping,
activities of physically. I want, apart from the concerning forest.
Hello, Mr. Soa, can you hear us? So I believe his line is cutting in and out, but he was saying that he just gave some examples of alternative livelihoods like mushroom production, snail rearing, beekeeping that can actually be performed within the forest. And if people actually see making money from these activities in the forest, then they're obviously incentivized to keep the forest healthy itself. And so, Mr. Soa, can you still hear us? You're on mute. I just had one other question, and that was, Mr. Soa, you're back off mute. Can you still hear us?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Yeah, so the final question is there anything else that you would like to share with the community or with the people who are on the call right now?
Well, I believe this project is one of a very important one. And every effort that we are putting in, I pray that will be sustained so that our farmers can be supported to also contribute to this good initiative. The Department of Agriculture is very much ready to provide any level of assistance that is within our powers to making sure that the objectives of this project is fully met. So we are giving our assurance to the team that we are available at any time. You call on us, we'll be able to support as much as we can.
We really appreciate that as well. We know we're going to need your help, and the Forestry Commission also said the same thing. And we really believe in combination, we can turn this situation around. And so what I'd like to do is just turn to the audience. Is anybody else on the call? Does anybody else on the call have any other questions for Mr. Soa?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you very much. It was very educational to both of you.
You're welcome. Okay, Curtis, did you have any other questions or D-side? Oh, Curtis, is Curtis still there? Yeah, he is. Okay.
Hi,
so,
Michael.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, all I just want to say is that so far so good. It's been so interesting hearing from both, yourself and then Mr. Esio. It's been very educational. We've been educated so much about the forest and what we can actually benefit from the forest. So I just want to find out from Mr. Esio if they already have species of the kind of mushroom to, mushroom kind of farming to go into, and then if there is a ready market so that once it's been produced, they could sell it off, because I know maybe mushroom cannot stay for so long a time if it's not bought on time or maybe sold on time. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we have some species ongoing in the district. We've tried oyster mushrooms in the Avatime enclave, and it did well. We had a farmer who won the district best mushroom farmer from Avatime district. And as I said earlier, Avatime, being a mountainous area, provides a very humid climate, atmosphere that is very much needed for mushrooms production, especially the oyster mushrooms. And so, as I said, it's been tried there and it's successful. And so I have no doubt about upscaling it and its maintenance at that level. It will be very, very beneficial. Also, about the market, we have a growing market for mushrooms. Over the years that we've been in mushroom production, I can say that the market is a growing one. And so going into mushroom productions in a large scale in Avatime will not be a regrettable venture at all.
Okay, so and I noticed there was a couple of comments from Ernest and also from the Paramount Chief in the chat, and so thank you for those comments. We did run a little long today, but I thought it was really important to hear from the Department of Agriculture. This is really important because we're monetizing an asset that today cannot be monetized, redirecting some of those funds to help farmers, to help the local community, to help the disenfranchised youth get alternative livelihoods. So obviously we think this is a really important project. That's why we're putting all of our time and effort into it. And I know your time is important. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for calling in today. Next week, we're actually going to have an interview with an individual farmer from the community. And so he will be able to share some very specific concerns that the farming community actually has. And again, that's representative of other areas in Ghana and potentially representative of other countries in Africa as well. So the main beneficiary of the system that we're coming up with is the Abitime Forest. And today, that's why we invited the Paramount Chief of Abitime to talk to us today. So Paramount Chief, maybe what you can do is unmute yourself, and then what we can do is have you introduce yourself, and then I have a series of questions for you. And so just so that everybody knows, in Ghana, there's a chieftain system, and the regular chiefs report up to a paramount chief, and the paramount chief is regarded as royalty in Ghana. So Paramount Chief, thank you so much for participating today. And maybe we can start off by having you introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Mark. I take cognizance of the fact that we have little time this time around. As Mark has said, I am the Paramount Chief, or the King of the Avatime traditional area. I was installed in 2008, directly succeeding my predecessor, who was once upon a time the president of the National House of Chiefs. I am a retired public officer, retiring just about over 4 years ago. And so I have a lot of public service experiences, and I live in Avatime with my people. I'm a married person, and I'm a member of I'm the president of Avatime Traditional Council, and then a president of Hokwe Traditional Council as well. I'm a member of the Volta Region House of Chiefs, once upon a time a member of the National House of Chiefs, and currently also a president of the Congress of Paramount Chiefs and Queens of the District of Ho West, in which Avatime is located.
Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. So in the US and Europe, there's a lot of large forests. Some of those large forests are owned by the government. Some of those large forests are owned by organizations. And so traditional carbon offsets cannot be sold by those mature forests because they don't believe they need to be incentivized to manage the forest effectively. And so are the forests in Ghana managed or owned by large organizations?
No, no forest in Ghana is owned and managed by organizations, transnational organizations. Those forests that are owned by or are utilized by organizations are those concessions that have been given to mining companies to do that. But their concession is limited to the underground of the land, not on the surface of the land. So no transnational organization or large organizations own forests. Forests are owned and under the care of the Paramount Chiefs or chiefs in all the areas in which forests are found. Government has what we call the forest reserves that are managed by the government, but there are other off-forest reserves which are managed by the community. And the chief, being the custodian of culture and tradition, has some usufructual right and allodial right over everything that is on the surface of the earth, including the trees.
Okay, so then given that different organizational structure, obviously, if I was speaking to an organization in America and I wanted to negotiate carbon sequestration rights with them, I would go to the CEO of that organization and try to sign a contract for the forest that they own. So given the different ownership structure in Ghana, who is authorized to decide whether to sell carbon sequestration rights specifically for the forest in Abitime?
The forest in Avatime, as I mentioned, under the control of the Paramount Chief, of the Chief of the traditional area. And so if anyone wants to come and talk about forest and its things, or wants to enter the forest in a traditional area, he naturally will have to go through the chief of the town, or the Paramount Chief of the area. In this case, some will have to come and pass through the Osi of Avatime, the king of Avatime, before they enter the forest. So anybody who goes into the forest without that formal introduction is causing some traditional anomaly, which when a situation arises, that person can pay the full rigors of the traditional and customary punishment that is available.
Okay, and then of course, that is why, of course, we discussed this project with you, and basically you sent us a letter saying that you wanted to participate in this program, and so you are the authority for the carbon sequestration rights for the Abitime Forest. So that's separate from
that
the
is right.
part of the forest. Okay, and so what is the government's position on your plan to monetize the carbon sequestration of the Abitime Forest? And so what is their position on you participating in this program and then planning to reinvest some of that money in forest management activities, and maybe even a program to create alternative livelihoods in the community?
Well, before this project of Avatime Forest and carbon sequestration that we're talking about, I have sought to protect the forest in Avatime by preventing illegal logging and to make sure that bushfires are limited to the large extent. So if there's any bushfire somewhere, the community people call me and say, oh, there's bushfire somewhere, and I have to summon my divisional chiefs to take control by that. So before then, Avatime, through me, we have been trying to protect and conserve the natural forest that God has given us. So we believe that it is the forest that sustains human beings, because our medicinal plants, our fauna and flora, our animals, our food even comes from the forest. We always say, we have a saying in Avatime that there is money in the forest. So we started that project vigorously. And before this Avatime Forest project came up by you, Mark, which was a laudable thing that is going to support the efforts that we have been making so much to make sure that we manage the forest better. We were doing that in order to contribute towards global climate change. That was our motive, to not knowing that we're doing it to service other people and not ourselves. Even though we had that opportunity that our forests are green and they are very nice, when we need animals or meat, go into the forest and do it, and the trees are not supposed to be harvested, because in Ghana or nationally, it is known that when the last tree dies, the last man also dies. So we based on that that scenario to protect our forests as much as possible before this carbon sequestration project came. So we thank you very much for coming, and we are going to support it and make sure that our people also benefit from something that we've been taking for granted for quite a long time. People have been benefiting from it.
Okay, and we appreciate your participation as well. So what can you tell us about the Avatime community?
Well, Avatime community is located in the whole west district of the Volta region of Ghana, West Africa, Africa. And it is the community that is lying, is the highest human settlement point in Ghana. So the climatic condition there is different from the surrounding and other parts of the country. In fact, people who visit that time during particular times of the year think that if you stay in Avatime for some time, then you'll be able to stay in any part of Europe. Of course, that is relative, but that shows how the Avatime community is full of. It's a tropical rainforest region in the Volta region, close to Togo, the country of Togo. Avatime is bordered by many traditional areas to the east, to the west, and all of them forested. The second highest mountain in Ghana is located in Avatime. The first one is in Afajato, in the Afajato South District, north of Avatime. So we have a continuum of forest. So Avatime people are not Eves particularly. They are what we call a tribe called Guans. And so we speak our own dialect, our own language, and learn Ewe or English as our second tongue. The population of Avatime is estimated to have around 30,000 that have to be confirmed. And we have 7 communities: Avatime Amejope, Avatime Vana, Avatime Biakpa, Avatime Jubefeme, Avatime Fume, Avatime Gbajeme, Avatime Tokwe, which are all managed by sub-chiefs, with the Paramount Chief living in Avatime Vane, superintending over all those things. So if there is any activity, any instruction that has to be implemented in the traditional area, it comes from the Paramount Chief through can you hear me?
Yes.
Through the traditional council, which is the highest decision-making body of the traditional area, recognized by government, to the subdivisional chiefs to implement. And so Avatime is one of the oldest traditional areas in the country, dating as far back as time you can remember. So Mark, that is in brief what we have in Avatime. We are an agrarian community. Our basic economic activity is farming. There are a number of schools and churches in Avatime. Why so? Because the German authority before the Second World War came to Avatime and liked the place. And Avatime used to be the residence of the colonial master at the time, because of the climatic conditions there. And the church also came there because of the climatic conditions. So we have one of the oldest church premises, church institutions in Avatime.
Okay. And what can you tell us about the Avatime Forest?
Well, as I said, Avatime Forest is a green forest in the tropical rainforest with a number of, in fact, a plethora of trees and flowers, butterflies, animals, what have you. It has large trees that is as far back as time can remember, but with the current economic or poverty levels and economic boom, our people and strangers come in to descend onto the forest to illegally fell those giant historical and customary trees. We used to have some traditional and customary practices that prevented people from entering forests. Our forefathers designated some forests as groves or no-go areas. But currently, with the could I call it modernity, or I don't know how to call it, people break those rules and just enter the forest with impunity, And so the rainforest is getting depleted gradually, but not at the rate at which other surrounding trees certain forests are getting rid, because of the action of the traditional council, working hand in hand with the district assembly and government officials to make sure that we protect our forests. So Avatime Forest is rich in it will not be surprising if we have some minerals down there under the sea, but we are very determined not to allow extraction of any sort in Avatime.
Okay, and the audience that we have today really has like a crypto type focus. Does the local community have any knowledge of cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, DAOs, or how these innovations can help bring new financing mechanisms to the local community?
I would say no to begin with, because these are novel ideas that are coming up. Cryptocurrency and crypto business may be happening in other parts of the world. In fact, when I was in the National House of Chiefs, there was a proposal for us to adopt the crypto regime, which a lot of people are not very, they have doubts about it because of this 419 and all manner of things. So Avatime people, I can say, and people mostly in Volta region are not very familiar with this crypto management of our forest, and we love to be part of that one. And we also want a lot of education on it, particularly the not the benefits, but the other side of it, which a lot of people fear, so they don't want to go into it, so that we can get convinced that it is a product that we can run along with.
Okay. And let's assume that this project that we have that's using selling NFTs to make money available for the local community. If a small amount of money was made available to the local community, how do you think that money should be spent?
Basically, as I mentioned earlier on, since if the last tree dies, the last man dies, that small amount initially will be used into sensitizing and reorienting people's minds about their relationship with the forest, which will include forest management, conservation, and growth. Because you can do any other project, if the people don't go along with you, you are bound to have some percentage that you will not like. And so the dividends of us living in that forest area must inure to the people to protect it. The reason why our forefathers chose that locality, nobody knew, but they found out that it was a secure place and a place that can give them their livelihood. And so if there will be any small amount of money that we would first of all use it in public education. And already we have formed task forces in the various communities. And the role of the task forces is to make sure that anybody that wants to log or fell a tree will have to get to that task force and seek permission from it. And they will go into the forest and see whether the tree is mature or the tree is good to be felled before it can fell. But of course, that is being abused because the members of the committee have been compromising themselves because of poverty. If a chainsaw operator comes with a little bit of money, then he will just outwit them. If he wants to fell one tree, he goes around felling more than one and comes around to do. So part of that money will be used to resource this team of vigilante groups or committee to be parading and the forest, to give them the working gear, identification maps, give them some small allowance that will motivate them to protect the forest. And of course, as I mentioned, education.
Yeah, and of course, part of our plan is to develop a social innovation studio that will help figure out what some of these challenges are in the community and then coming up with different ways to solve some of those problems that will hopefully lead to some of these people starting companies, becoming entrepreneurs, creating jobs and alternative livelihoods. Because if they do have an alternative livelihood, it's less likely that they will then go and fell these trees illegally. And so to really address that root cause, we need to give people better jobs and better options, which is part of this program. So
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
changing the subject slightly, there's a rumor out there that there's some type of a festival that happens every year in Abitime. Is that right? And if
Yes.
so, can you tell us a little bit about the festival?
Well, thank you very much. I was telling someone just this afternoon that our forefathers were so innovative and this thing. When they traveled from wherever they were coming to the present location, they carried along with them a type of food that can be light to carry around, but that can grow twice a year or as often as you planted it. They planted it. So they carried along them brown rice, which rice has sustained them over the years. And so to recognize and celebrate that rice, we celebrate what we call the Avatime Mountain Brown Rice Festival, shortly put Amu Fest. Amu in Avatime language is brown rice. So we celebrate it every year to support the farmers, to train them, to educate them about the usefulness of continuously planting the rice and as a means of giving them some income and sustainability. I want to add here that the brown rice has some nutrition, so which our people have, our forefathers have noticed. So from the cradle to the grave, we use the brown rice for our festivals. When a child is born, the time before this child food was adopted, our mothers used to have some pap, some fine pap made up of brown rice, which is so nutritious. And so it gives the child the start of the startup in life. And then during the process, we call something the puberty rice or kusakoko, where young girls are initiated into womanhood. During that period too, we use brown rice and use progress as much as possible. And then finally, when God calls you and you are going, brown rice is also one of the dishes that we clearly use to do that because it's nutritious, it can sustain you for a long time. When you prepare the food down, that particular type or variety of brown rice can stay longer than all other varieties. And of course, we are using it organically. We don't want any chemicals to come in. So the festival first is used to mobilize our local people, friends of Avatime, to come around to for us to raise funds for the development of Abakatine, of course, and then to celebrate the brown rice and popularize its use, because we've been told that the nutrition components of that rice is good. One of the ladies who has been championing it even said that if you're developing prostate, if you continuously eat that rice, chances are that your prostate situation would minimize, and then your manhood will also be up in doing. So it's a combination of the benefits of that rice. That's why we do it, and most importantly, because you can grow that rice twice or three times a year. In 3 months, you can grow it. They can grow at any part of the rice, water, little water you need to grow that rice. And so this year, because of COVID, last year and this year, we didn't celebrate Amu Fest. We celebrate it in November each year, second week of November each year. And so we invite our friends, and I'm sure all those who are listening in now, next year when we are celebrating it, you have special invitation. We'll have a space allotted for you to come and participate. We want to see you there next year. We celebrate it in all the Avatime towns in a rotational basis. So we started with the Paramount Chief, the Paramount headquarters. Then we went around all the 7 towns. We started the second round before COVID came. And so we were unable to celebrate it again. And we have a theme that runs through the celebration, that unity and development in Avatime through brown rice culture and ecotourism. Tourism is also part of Avatime. I mean, in the district, we call Avatime the tourism hub of the district. In fact, it is also the tourism hub of Volta region, because there you can stand and see all kinds. There are a number of caves, there are a number of waterfalls, there are a number of birds, flies, and of course, our culture that is not related to the culture of the neighboring communities also is a thing to see. And of course, the weather is also another thing. So all these things combined help us to celebrate the Amu Fest every year.
And just so that the audience know, I was there in October and I actually tasted the brown rice, and it's absolutely delicious. So I encourage everybody to take the Paramount Chief up on the invitation to go to the festival. So Paramount Chief, just to finish this interview, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience today?
Well, I just want to encourage the audience that they should come to Avatime. I am not very uncertain that this project that has been started would add up with other traditional areas very soon. Our next meeting of the Traditional Council is this Saturday, and then the following day we'll be having the Congress of Paramount Chiefs and Queens meeting in the district. And I'll use the opportunity to brief my people about what is happening. Of course, I've briefed them already. What I want you to understand is that you shouldn't doubt the potency of this project or the viability of this project, because it's dear to the heart of the people of Avatime. Chieftaincy has been guaranteed by the Constitution of Ghana. Article 270, if you read it, of the Constitution of Ghana guarantees the chieftaincy institution. And so the chiefs have some allodial title to land and things that are on top of the land. Even though chiefs may not know. The story that goes around that chiefs don't own land in the Volta region, they say, I just information that goes around to by some individuals to their let me put it, selfish interest in the land. But of course, Avatime is using the available government legislation and laws to support what action that is taken. So currently, as I speak, with the help of Lands and Natural Resources, the ministry, we have established what we call the Avatime Customary Land Secretariat that is helping to document land boundaries in the community. And recently, just last week, we met the Minister of Lands and Charter, and we reiterated the issue of helping us develop customary boundaries and traditional boundaries. So invite everybody to pick up this role. Whatever help is there that we can give, that you can give to support the efforts that we are making now, is welcome, highly welcome. And I think that if we succeed, you also succeed. If you are happy, you also be happy. So I want to thank all of you, particularly Mark and David, for blazing the trail to come on their own cost or at their own cost to get the first-hand information of what had happened. When David came, I realized that he was so tired that he I'm sure at the end of it all, he loved it and so to come again. And so we will make you citizens of Avatime if you so wish. So you are welcome to do that, because we want to take advantage of any government policy that will have our brothers in the diaspora to come to Africa. That is one other motivation that is helping me particularly to welcome such things. It's a win-win situation. I will pray that when we are happy, you will also be happy.
And just so that everybody else knows, David is actually the president of a broker-dealer, a US FINRA SEC certified broker-dealer. And the reason he went to Avatime is because he is planning to extend the remit of his broker dealership to market and sell carbon offsets. And he expressed to FINRA that he was planning to do that. FINRA said that's okay. And what he wanted to do was verify the right of sale of the carbon offsets associated with the Abitime Forest as an independent third party. So he spoke with the Paramount Chief, he spoke with the government, the Forestry Commission and other people, and he actually visited the forest himself so that he could validate, that the forest exists, that the trees are healthy and capable of sequestering carbon, and then the rights of ownership are there, and the right of sale is basically there, and it's all supported by the government. And so we've got that independent verification from a US regulator. So thank you for that. What I want to do is just open it up. There's a couple of people on the call, and so does anybody else have any questions right now for the Paramount Chief?
I don't have any questions. D-Side always has the great questions, but I just wanted to again say thank you for educating us and educating anybody who's listening to this video. As an American and somebody who's farmed quite a bit, I understand how important it is that we never actually can imagine that there's only one tree left on this planet. And so I just want to affirm that, I recognize as American my responsibility to the disproportionate amount of carbon impact on the environment that we're seeing today. And I am highly committed to, doing what I can to make sure that, our children never have to see the last tree. So I'm super grateful. Thank you. And thank you, Mark and D-Side, Curtis, everybody that's been here on all these.
And I have to say, Curtis has been our advocate. Curtis and D-Side have been our advocates within the Bankless DAO. They've been a great help in terms of certainly directing me to the resources that I need at this end to try to, keep this moving forward. And so I really appreciate everything that Curtis and D-Side have done for us. D-Side, do you have any other questions or comments?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. And thank you, Paramount Chief. I mean, this is super cool that you took the time to explain everything to us. I really appreciate it. I think this project is amazing for so many reasons, the environmental reasons, the cultural reasons. And, I am always intrigued by and really interested in what the cultural impact of a project like this might be. So, what kind of support do you have in the communities, the Abitime communities for this project? How aware are they of what you're working on and this entire project as a whole? And I guess I just want to know how it's going to impact them. I know you got into it a little bit, but how do they feel about it?
Well, I think that the question is for Mark. That's all for me.
It's for you, Paramount Chief.
I think it's for you.
All right.
And I'm asking you because I know that you're in touch with the people on a daily basis, and you're living there. How is it going to affect their lives?
Well, let me just mention that it's a welcome project that am I online?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's a welcome project for the entire community. As I mentioned, the importance of forests is dear to the hearts of everybody, and everybody knows that when climate change is coming, people have started complaining already that the weather is changing, the rainfall pattern is changing, it's affecting their farming communities. Rainstorms come and rip off the roofs of people. They destroy farms, floods come. Just those are the effects of climate change. So anything that we can do to make sure that the people are safe customarily and safe to go about their economic activities is welcome. It will impact their lives because it will if we do it, the traditional method of gaining income or livelihood is going to be, I believe, is going to change, and other innovations may come in. For instance, snail farming, beekeeping, mushroom farming, other skills that the project would develop. Teenage pregnancy would reduce because people don't have jobs to do, and the young girls fall prey to the young men who give them pittances to get them. I think that women particularly will benefit because we want to emphasize on the cultivation of the mountain brown rice, which is their preoccupation. It's cultivated once a year, but this year, through our intervention, we experimented a thing to find out whether we can cultivate it twice a year. And we have established cooperative groups in each of the traditional areas. So as I speak now, there are 7 cooperative groups that are working. One of the cooperative groups took up that challenge and cultivated the first batch of rice in March this year. And I tell you, it was amazing. When I interviewed the people, they said they had too much rice that they cannot go into the major season again. Somebody else will also go and farm. For me, that is an indication that they have accepted that they should farm the rice twice in a year. So what it would do, it would tremendously change the lives of the people. But as I mentioned, changing the lives will start from changing the minds of the people and their way of life and their understanding, their relationship with the environment. And so I believe that this project, if we put our hearts to it and our minds to it, will change, will give a lot of jobs to our people. Currently, the young men are all doing what they call Okada, motorbike. I mean, somebody starts something and the other person comes. People need just a little bit of money to start small businesses. Women need something to start with a table shop, a table stop, selling sales. They cannot have things. And so if we can have a situation where little monies can remain in their hands, then they can send their children to school, they can take care of their health needs, they can also contribute towards the development of the community, because now I cannot tax anybody too much to give to support the traditional area or the festival. I can tell you that when we started, it was hell of a trouble to raise funds. And I believe that if this project comes and there is an understanding that we are not saying that this project is going to solve all the problems. No. In our own way, we would use our internal strengths and potentials to also support some of these things that we are doing. But we need a startup. I can tell you an example. The corporate groups that we have formed, some of them need some small money to buy Wellington boots or cutlasses. I used to do that for them, buy cutlasses and send them to them to encourage them. But that cannot continue forever. The idea that I want to bring to them is that they must also begin to understand that if somebody gives you money, you have to pay back. So that kind of business transaction should develop. So I believe that is going to change the culture and culture of livelihood in Abitime, basically.
Thank you.
Ernest, have I answered you?
Yeah.
I don't know, Ernest.
D-side said thank you. So,
Yeah. You did answer me. I really appreciate it. And it sounds to me, with a project like this, I often wonder if the local community is open to it, or if it's being forced upon them. But it sounds to me from what you're saying is that they're open to it, they're welcoming it, they want to evolve into they want their economy to evolve, essentially, right?
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah.
And D-side, I'd like to add some information here based on my observations when I was there. And I keep going back to this concept of additionality, which is this exclusionary concept with traditional carbon offsets that says, if you've got a mature forest, you cannot monetize it by selling traditional carbon offsets. Again, that makes sense in America. It makes sense in Europe, where these mature forests are owned by these big organizations who do not need financial incentives. But when you have a mature forest in Abitime or other low-income communities in Africa, the forest is their only source of a potential source of income. And so if there's a mechanism to help them monetize that mature forest, but that mechanism is not available to them, that policy of additionality is great in America, it's great in Europe, it's absolutely disastrous in Africa. And it actually has exactly the opposite of the intended effect, because what it means is that, you know, some of these communities cannot monetize that mature forest in the traditional way by monetizing the carbon sequestration. And so you end up having some of these youth who will go and do illegal logging, like the Paramount Chief was alluding to. And so this policy of additionality can actually incentivize deforestation, which is exactly the opposite of what it's trying to do. And also it can cause conflict in the community, where maybe the younger people are saying, you know, we need a way to monetize our forests, and maybe the elders aren't doing enough to come up with new ways to monetize the forest. And so it can actually cause conflict in the community. And so while, you know, this concept of additionality has got a good grounding in the US and in Europe, it's absolutely disastrous for Africa, where it can cause community conflict and it can actually cause deforestation. And so that's why we have come up with a completely different concept for monetizing carbon sequestration. And again, to us, it's more of a Web 3.0 type solution, where in the long run, the owner of the land, the owner of the 1 hectare of forestry will be able to stake their forestry into this marketplace, and anybody will be able to buy the carbon sequestration rights or any digital or virtual rights directly from the owner of the land or directly from the farmer. And initially 65% of the value will go to a farmer, where today for a traditional carbon offset, they probably get less than 1%. So today, 65% of the value will go to community, and in the long run, we should be able to increase that to 85% or more. And so that's why we're here today. We're trying to use NFTs and other blockchain related technology. In our case, it's satellite imagery, it's machine learning, artificial intelligence, a DAO, and also NFTs to bring Web 3.0 solution to a pre-existing challenge that exists in the community. And hopefully this will be a way to fund forest management activities, forest security, and also a social innovation studio, which will help those local entrepreneurs solve those challenges in a way that is sustainable and profitable, so that they don't have to keep coming back to us to fund it. And we will help deliver the skills they need to be local entrepreneurs, whether it's for mushroom farming or whatever the solution is that they come up with for those alternative solutions. And then hopefully we can deliver a pool of funds where they can get the startup funding they need to get these businesses going, and then replenish that pool of funds so that that pool of funds grows over time. So that's what we're trying to do. That's a solution that we're proposing, and that's a solution that we're implementing. So does anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Let me add something to what Mark has said, a practical example. There is a notorious chainsaw operator in my village. And when this issue came for him to the logging, a simple question that he asked me was that, what do you want me to eat if I don't go into the forest? So he's always in the forest, secreting the forest, you know, and for him is the livelihood that is making him to do what they have to needs to eat. But I believe that if people understand that there is some carbon offset cost or some money that is coming from the forest that they are not working for, but just to protect it, and to continue to have that sustainable income from the forest
without
the
Yeah, and that exact person is the person we want to help to convert into an entrepreneur, so that that person can get an alternative livelihood that makes more money than illegal logging. And once we can do that, then we've solved that problem for that one person. And then we can solve these other problems, like, you know, you're talking about the ladies who need additional funding to help them, you know, with the farming that they need to do. And then we can start solving those problems one at a time, but solve them in a way that's sustainable and profitable, so that they don't have to keep coming back to us for funding. And then that pool of funds will grow over time to help them continue in that new livelihood. So that's the goal. Okay, so if there's no other questions, we can bring this interview to an end. And again, I'd like to thank the Paramount Chief, the King of the people of Abitime again, for his time. We really appreciate this, because there isn't a good understanding here of the chieftain system and the land ownership situation and the rights and who has the rights to sell these carbon sequestration rights. And so I think you've answered those questions. And again, we really appreciate your time and we thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I haven't forgotten Curtis for the wonderful things that you do. And of course, there is my colleague, the Paramount Chief of Aplau Traditional Area, Jonugaga Aminya Fiti, who was the link person to this project. He lives along the coast, and for him to embrace this project and make it available to me, I need to appreciate him so much for that. And Curtis, thank you so much for the work you are doing. You know that this is an offside work that you are doing, but put more effort into it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you so much, and bye for now.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.